Welcome back to the Bitcoin Layer. I'm Nik Bhatia. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming back Noelyne Sumba. Noelyne is a fantastic Bitcoin advocate and someone who we rely on to give us the scoop, what is going on the ground in Africa with regard to Bitcoin adoption. Noelyne, very nice to see you. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a while. I'm always happy to be on the Bitcoin Layer. So thank you for having me today.
Of course, Noelyne. So please tell us, you just got back from a Bitcoin conference in Cape Town. What is the sentiment around Bitcoin? I know that at the Bitcoin Layer, we have been completely caught up with the US political cycle over the last 6 months, but we need to check in what's going on the ground.
Okay, so yes, I'm just from the conference in Cape Town, a fantastic conference. It was Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town, organized by Bitcoin Ekasi and Machankura. And what was impressive for me, Nik Bhatia, I can also say for the same, as an African, was the ability to spend Bitcoin in one of their major stores in South Africa called Pick and Pay. So it seems like the perception there in terms of Bitcoin is really positive. They're more open to it. I was able to pay a few people. It's not widely accepted in terms of government, but I was able to just talk to people about Bitcoin and they were able to understand and accept payment in terms of Bitcoin. So it was impressive to watch. I was able to visit two circular economies, the Bitcoin, one under Bitcoin Ekasi, in which they work with the surfer kids. They pay kids to surf, they teach them on surfing. And Bitcoin Withstand, that was more circular economy that has lots of businesses accepting Bitcoin. So I think that for me, my lesson learned from the visit was more of in terms of adoption, going in terms of the community way. It's possible to actually change communities. In fact, for Bitcoin Wits, and you can even tell that the income per capita for the area has really grown as a result of accepting Bitcoin payment. So that was really impressive to learn, to watch. So I feel like South Africa, in terms of adoption, they really are a good example. So if you want to ever spend Bitcoin, South Africa is the place to go for sure.
So, do you feel like you mentioned a circular economy, but do you feel like money is coming in from outside and helping the growth of this area because they are being Bitcoin friendly? Are there people coming from other parts of Africa? Is it the US and Europe? Who's coming? Who's spending that money? And how is South Africa building up that Bitcoin merchant economy lifestyle?
Okay, so in terms of the circular economies, we had I can't be really more of an advocate of it. I could say that one of the businesses that we went to, they could not have Bitcoin consistently as a payment because of the people who are coming to spend Bitcoin. I imagine if you are only going there for once a year and spending and then leaving for the rest of the year, they will just have to accept fiat. But for the township area, they've established it in such that the people receive Bitcoin when they carry out maybe, for example, there's sharks that are painted, and the people who are in the sharks receive around sats weekly, and with these sats they're able to spend in the shops. So at least for the place, they've been able to establish a whole circular economy as compared to businesses where tourists are the ones who can be able to go and spend Bitcoin whenever they're there. But in terms of the national level, the South African government is more open to considering a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So that's at least a positive in terms of the regulations. You realize in South Africa the banking system is really it's really dominant. I think there's around 6 banks, if I'm not wrong, that control the whole industry. So it's very bank centralized, and for them to be able to integrate Bitcoin into the system, they will require probably going the Bitcoin strategic reserve way. Yeah. So for circular economies, one, tourists, one, they've been able to do it as a community.
As Bitcoin's role in the global financial landscape evolves, understanding its potential impact on your wealth becomes increasingly crucial. Whether we see a measured adoption or accelerated hyper-Bitcoinization. Being prepared for various scenarios can make the difference between merely participating and truly optimizing your position. This is why Unchained developed the Bitcoin Calculator, a sophisticated modeling tool that helps you visualize and prepare for multiple Bitcoin futures. Beyond traditional retirement planning, it offers deep insight into how different adoption scenarios could transform your wealth trajectory. What sets this tool apart is that it's integrated with Unchained IRA, the only solution that combines the tax advantages of a retirement account with self-custody of Bitcoin. In any future state, maintaining control of your Bitcoin keys remains fundamental to your Bitcoin strategy. Explore your potential futures at unchained.com/TBL. And what about the culture around Bitcoin? In the United States, we have a large portion of the country that is very hardcore Bitcoin believers and advocates. Then you have another portion of the country that is fighting Bitcoin politically from an energy perspective. And then you have a bunch of people that don't know about Bitcoin much. They just think it's something there. They're not really paying attention to it. So, what is it in South Africa? Obviously, Noelyne, you are from Kenya, but you spend
Yes.
time in different parts of the continent. So, what is the culture toward Bitcoin right now? And has that changed over the last year or two?
Okay, so from what I was able to observe, there is a section of people who do not know about Bitcoin at all, and there is the other section who are actively working in this space towards its progress. So I divide that, and the population of people who still understand Bitcoin, it's really, really low if you compare to the majority of the population in the country. In terms of the fighting, I've not really seen that, but yeah, there is people who are really, really advocating. They understand its importance and its benefit for the community. So yes.
Now, talk to us about, let's visit different parts of the continent. What's going on in Ethiopia? Because we've heard about large mining projects in that country. How is the Bitcoin story progressing there?
Oh yeah, last we discussed, we had talked about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This was the $16 billion project infrastructure that had an installed capacity of around 5.15 gigawatts upon completion. So fully operational, the GAD will be the largest hydroelectric power plant in Africa and among the top 20 largest in the world. So in 2024, at least the Ethiopian government opened the country to the Bitcoin mining industry. And why this was possible is because of its low electricity rate. They offered a rate of around I think 3.2 cents USD per kilowatt hour. So you can imagine how this will be affordable for especially Bitcoin mining companies. And in fact, for that year, last year, they were able to have revenue. That is the Ethiopian Electric Power company, a revenue of around 55 million USD, and they're projecting up to around 126 million going forward. And this is because of the cheap cost of energy. And we've even been able to see Ethiopia has been notable. Right now, it's contributing to roughly 2.5% of the global Bitcoin hash rate due to the low electricity cost. So with Ethiopia, I feel going forward, it's going to be a major hub for Bitcoin mining in the continent. So for us, I guess we still have. We have the Gamma, and then Gridless also doing the mining, but Ethiopia has been notable in terms of contributing to the hash rate from Africa.
Now, I want to explain to people, Gridless is a company that we've covered before. We've discussed with Noelyne various hydroelectric facilities in remote parts of the continent, in jungles, in villages, and using rivers, building small hydroelectric facilities to help both power the village and then use the excess power for Bitcoin mining. And what we hear in Ethiopia is that if you have one of the 20 largest hydroelectric dams in the world, you have one of the lowest electricity costs, then a lot of that electricity, for people that don't understand, if you have a river and it's going through a dam and the dam is generating electricity, 100% of that electricity is not consumed. There is no way to store and use 100% of that electricity as the water flows through. Therefore, there is a concept called stranded energy or excess energy. And the reason that Bitcoin miners love places with stranded energy is because the energy would never have been used. The electricity would have been wasted otherwise. And so the Bitcoin mining industry itself is changing the way we think about hydroelectric dams from the first
Absolutely.
principle.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, can you speak to that, Noelyne, not just in Ethiopia, but what does that mean for the African people or any of the people of the countries in which these projects are going on?
Okay, so what this means, first of all, is especially for rural areas where the uh, distance from the grids is quite a challenge. They can be able to receive electricity and not just receive electricity. The cost can be subsidized because the owner of the grid will also be earning, and this way cheaper electricity costs will also be transferred. And energy is a huge factor when it comes to the development in Africa. Lots of homes still do not have enough energy, enough electricity. So this is going to be a game changer. Because now, if homes can be able to have electricity, a lot lives will be able to be transformed as a result of this, and this is why it's especially of importance if governments could consider this even as a not just as a source of revenue for themselves, but as a way of transforming lives and communities in Africa as well.
We must keep it in mind that if a Bitcoin mining project can help bring electricity to a village that has never had electricity, that is
Yeah.
something to champion, to support, and to invest in, and to explore and to expose. That's why we're here talking about these things because, yeah, in British Columbia and Alberta, for example, two of the largest provinces in Canada, there are
Yes.
large mining projects in both of these places. The
Mm-hmm.
mining projects are located there because of excellent hydroelectricity facilities that leave a lot of stranded energy. But
Yeah.
the facilities in Canada are not bringing power to villages that have never had power before.
Yeah.
It is not the case in Canada. It is the case in Africa. It is the case in some parts of Latin America and Asia as well. So we have to make sure that we're delivering this message to people that they understand the way that Bitcoin can help change the world and help people outside of simply being a better savings technology, which it clearly is. So in Africa, Noelyne, how do we've talked a lot about Tether, especially in Nigeria. We've talked
Yes.
about Tether being an excellent tool for Africans uh, to store money, to store wealth, to store their labor, because Tether is going to hold value better than their local currency. And over a long-term time horizon, Bitcoin will hold better value better than Tether, but there is a usability of Tether on the continent right now that Bitcoin doesn't necessarily have. So can you give us the latest with Tether and Bitcoin and what you're seeing on the ground within any specific country, Nigeria or elsewhere?
Okay. I really can't speak on behalf of people holding, but I can speak in regards to company. I saw a report released by Blink, whereby they say a larger percentage of the users preferred holding Bitcoin as compared to Tether. But as for me, what I've experienced with trading, in terms of the trading industry in Kenya, Tether is traded more than Bitcoin at the moment. As a result of what you said, our currencies in terms of of our currencies are really devaluing faster as compared to holding USD. So Tether really serves as the best option, especially when it comes to payment for exportation. It's really the go-to, rather the gateway, as compared to holding your current your country's currency. So you're definitely right on that. Tether is in use as compared to the local currencies. Whether it's preferred as compared to Bitcoin, maybe that's we can tell in terms of the knowledge and the information that people have. Most people would prefer USD because they don't understand the value of Bitcoin. So yeah, that's where I would stand on that.
Absolutely. And, I have family abroad. And Nolene, I'm sure you have this experience as well, but people that live in countries with local currencies that are not stable, they hold dollars, they hold paper US dollars, they hold them in their house in locked boxes, in safes, in hidden places. And Tether is a digitalization of that construct. We also know from the Federal Reserve itself that about 1 trillion or more out of the couple trillion in currency, paper currency notes circulating are located abroad because there is a need for dollars to avoid those weak local currencies. And like you said, the dollar is understood. Bitcoin isn't widely understood yet. And that is why Tether holds a certain place in the I wouldn't even call it a portfolio, but in the daily life of people in Kenya, for example.
Yeah, not even that. Recently, I was just talking to a friend from Zimbabwe, and she surprised me. She told me that remember the Zimbabwean the Zimbabwean dollars that were introduced. Nobody wants to hold them. They're all trading in dollars at the moment because just how much it's lost its value, and people will prefer to go for a currency that they understand will hold its value over time. So the local currency in the country, not so much in use. People will be like, no, just give me the dollar. They're pricing their goods and services in that as compared to the Zimbabwean currency. So that was very interesting to learn for myself. Yeah.
Of course, Nolene, because they don't want to have to raise their prices every day, right? That's
Yeah.
bad for business.
Yeah.
So if they price in
Yeah.
dollars, they don't necessarily have to do that. And they can still outpace their own cost of living because they're doing business in dollars and they might be able to spend local currency or maybe not. If people aren't even accepting the Zimbabwean dollar, the new
Yeah.
currency, then it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah. Doesn't at all.
Okay, let's visit your home country of Kenya. The last time we discussed Kenya, the anti Bitcoin regulations were starting to be lifted. That was something that was exciting to you. So, where has the country gone since then?
Yeah, so it has taken a different turn. With the previous central bank governor, he was very much against Bitcoin regulation, so he was very much anti-Bitcoin. But as per now, law enforcement agencies in Kenya, and to my knowledge also South Africa, they're now pushing for laws in Bitcoin. This was initially introduced under the finance bill in 2024 in Kenya, and mostly the focus was on anti-money laundering and KYC, and they wanted to take this in terms of establishing financial security because cryptocurrency is in very much big use in the country, especially among the young population. One thing I have to say about this, I understand from myself that a male approach has been largely ineffective. I've seen estimates that say that up to 2 trillion is laundered in terms of fiat, but with that's $3 trillion. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, you've had $2 billion. Rather new when it comes to compliance, but this is interesting for me to note. And maybe one thing that I would like to put out there is these regulations are also being introduced by the IMF. So it's more of like a wonder. And looking at the license fees that are in there, you can tell that it's meant to kill the small industries in the country. But I'm not one to speak in terms of compliance, because once the government decides this is the step they want to go, I'm more than happy that they're at least listening to us when it comes to the industry. And whichever direction they feel they want to go about it, we'd be more than willing to listen and maybe see how this can be able to benefit the larger population as a whole. So yeah,
We have to be aware of international organizations that are working to protect legacy industries, the banks specifically, and be wary of regulations that are targeting Bitcoin customers or businesses serving the cryptocurrency industry. We must be vocal in our support of the correct legislation. And on that topic, Noelyne, it's something that we took to heart in the United States in 2024, trying to make sure that the regulations that were being placed on this industry were reversed, were corrected in some way. So, what is the view of the US from Africa, the election result, the move in Bitcoin, the pro Bitcoin administration? What is the view of us from your side?
honestly, as personally, I was very happy that we have at least a pro Bitcoin president in the US, whether we want to admit it or not. Whatever is implemented in the US eventually stream rules all the way to Africa in terms of our decisions. If our countries could consider, because I know the issue here is revenue generation, especially for Kenya, just besides the IML and KYC, which I won't speak about the effectiveness or not. Even though I understand the data, I am not in a position to speak in terms of compliance in a professional manner. But if the issue is revenue generation, there's other ways of going about it. Let's go the US way. Have our governments have Bitcoin strategic reserves instead. Let them get into mining. I think that would be a much better way of generating revenue rather than implementing licenses that will actually crush small industries that are addressing the issue of unemployment in this country. And it's even surprising. So for us, around $14 million has been set aside to create these laws. And we are setting up laws for an asset that is permissionless. And if we really look into implementation of these laws in Bitcoin, I do not know how easy it will be for them to actually implement them. So, in a country whereby we are facing issues of ARVs are not available, baby vaccines are not available. Maybe these funds could be redirected into other more productive things that are dire in Africa, as compared to trying to regulate an industry that majorly really will be helping lift a number of lives out of poverty. Yeah, so I think maybe our priorities are different. This is not just in Kenya. Places like Uganda, they've never really even tried to consider this. In South Africa, same case. AML, KYC regulations are here. And maybe it's best for the industries that are pushing for this to try and understand the use case value and go about it in another way that could be able to generate revenue for themselves as well. So yeah,
If
that's
countries in Africa can harness Bitcoin, pro Bitcoin policies to lift people out of poverty, there's no
yeah,
better reason to explore those policies. A very, very different situation than what we are facing in the United States, which is
yeah,
over indebtedness and restriction on the freedom of transactions. It's a very different issue from what's going on in Africa. So people should please go follow Noelyne Sumba on social media. Make sure that they're receiving messages of Bitcoin adoption from around the world because we can all learn from each other. Noelyne is mentioning that African nations can look at the United States now and take an example and say maybe we should have a strategic Bitcoin
Yeah,
reserve. We should have pro mining policies that will lift our economy. The United States is looking at countries like South Africa and Nigeria and seeing circular Bitcoin economies develop and being inspired by that type of activity as well. We can all learn from each other.
true.
Noelyne Sumba, thank you once again. Please tell people where they can find you online, what you're working on, and some of the companies that you're associated with in Africa.
Okay, yes. So you can find me on X at Noelyne Sumba, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the other social media platforms at Noelyne Sumba. I am working with Machankura, that's for the new ones. That's a Bitcoin wallet company that enables sending and receiving of Bitcoin with or without internet connection. So we are currently based in terms of the USSD in 7 African countries, but you can be able to access us all over Africa using what platforms such as WhatsApp. And besides that, I also carry out translation of Bitcoin content, literature into Swahili. And so basically, I just passionate about Bitcoin. I make sure I work towards adoption of Bitcoin every single day, and so far so good. And I'm looking forward to, yeah, Bitcoin adoption, not just Africa but globally. Thank you so much, Nick.
Noelyne Sumba, of course, we are also looking forward to it, and we look forward to visiting with you once again, and you can give us the inside scoop of what's going on the ground floor in
Okay.
Africa and Bitcoin adoption. We'll catch you guys next time.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me, Nick.